All right, President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump perhaps have at least one thing in common: Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for an enemy. Biden traveled to Florida on Thursday, just 2 days after his State of the Union address, calling out DeSantis for failing to expand Medicaid under terms in the Affordable Care Act. And Trump has called DeSantis disloyal, targeting his potential rival in 2024. Here with more on this as it develops, Niall Stanage, White House columnist with our partners at The Hill. Niall, thanks so much for being here.
Good to be here, Natasha.
Niall, did you ever think Biden and Trump would have something to agree on?
Almost impossible to even conceive of the idea until Ron DeSantis came along, isn't it? They don't really agree on anything else in the world other than that DeSantis is a bad guy or someone who at least should be open to criticism.
Do you think that Ron DeSantis is strategically avoiding a fight with Trump leading up to the Florida governor's potential run?
To some extent, yes. I mean, Ron DeSantis is clearly the single biggest rival to former President Trump for the Republican nomination, because everyone accepts that reality. DeSantis doesn't really need the publicity. He doesn't really need the hassle that comes with attacking Trump. And he knows also that the media itself is likely to poke at Trump over the period of time when he is the only candidate. And so there is really no incentive for Ron DeSantis himself to go frontally at the former president. And added to that, Trump is, of course, still really pretty resoundingly popular with the Republican base, even though his approval ratings with the public at large are obviously much lower.
If DeSantis does run, does he suffer with voters at all because of his battle with Disney? And what have you been tracking with that this week?
So the battle with Disney has been intensifying for a long period of time. To summarize that, Natasha, it really began with the controversial bill that was backed by Governor DeSantis, limiting the teaching of sexuality in schools. Disney objected to that law and a whole feud erupted. Just on Friday, Governor DeSantis has taken control of a board that essentially oversees development at Walt Disney World, restricting Disney's autonomy. Will it hurt with voters? I don't think it will hurt with Republican voters, because Republican voters are very eager for these kind of battles against what they see as wokeness, what they see derisively as a kind of excessive focus on either identity politics or newfangled ideas. So I think it all probably helps DeSantis in the Republican primary. Again, general election, if he got that far, would perhaps be a different story.
At what point do you think DeSantis' team will start to take on Trump? Because we know that Trump will be on the offensive if he's not already, and only in an increasing way. And is there a fine line and sort of a dance that he has to do to not alienate certain members of the GOP as well?
Yeah, there is to a certain extent. For a start, it is widely assumed that Governor DeSantis will only think about officially entering the race after the Florida legislature wraps up its session, and that is in May. In the interim period, there's certainly an incentive for him to defend himself. And in fact, he did that just a couple of days ago, Natasha, where, to make a very long story short, the former president was suggesting something shady going back 20 years ago, a suggestion that Governor DeSantis, during a brief time as a high school teacher, had partied with students. DeSantis shot back, saying that he didn't want to spend his time smearing other Republicans, clearly a shot back at Trump. So it's not as if DeSantis is just being completely passive, but I think he's going to wait for some time before really getting down and dirty with the former president, so to speak.
White House columnist with The Hill, Niall Stanage, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Natasha.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.